Minister of Health has just announced that a University Health Center, UHC, will be built in the country municipality, RCM, of Trois-Vallons at a cost of $125 million. According to the RCM policy, the mayors of the towns in Trois-Vallons must agree on the location of the health center. The town of Haut-Vallons is located 60 kilometers east and 30 kilometers north of the town of Grand-Vallons. The town of Petit-Vallons is located 20 kilometers east and 10 kilometers south of Grand-Vallons. The RCM, which covers a territory of nearly 600 kilometers and has a population of 76,000 inhabitants, is served by a very efficient road system which connects the towns in the RCM by means of roads that run in straight lines. Here it says nearly 600. I did the calculation. It's exactly 600 meters. I don't know why they didn't say exactly, but that was mean. Let's make a graph. Put Grand-Vallons at the origin. Haut-Vallons is located 60 kilometers east and 30 kilometers north of the town of Grand-Vallons. That's why I put Grand-Vallons at the origin. Over 60 and up 30 brings us right here. The town of Petit-Vallons is 20 kilometers east, 10 kilometers south down here. Here are the roads. They're just straight lines. Choice A, Mayor A of Grand-Vallons with 24,000 inhabitants suggests that the UHC be built halfway between Haut-Vallons and Grand-Vallons, since nearly 95% of the population resides along this road. Putting it here. This is choice A. It's the midpoint. Look, it's halfway. So it's going to be at 30-15. You don't even have to do a calculation. Choice B, Mayor B of Haut-Vallons, 48,000 inhabitants, is in partial agreement with her counterpart in Grand-Vallons. She believes that the health center should be built along the road connecting her town with Grand-Vallons, but proposes that the UHC be located at a point of division that is more proportional to the populations of the two towns, so that a larger number of citizens live a short distance from the healthcare center. She wants the population to be located 1/4 of the distance from Haut-Vallons. Right here, it's the midpoint between choice A and Haut-Vallons. Choice C, Mayor C of Petit-Vallons suggests that the UHC be located along the road between Grand-Vallons and Haut-Vallons at a point that would make it possible for her to build the shortest possible road between her town and the healthcare center. We're talking about the distance from a point to a line. This line is going to be perpendicular to this line, the line between Grand-Vallons and Haut-Vallons. This is choice C, so let's do the calculations. We'll start with choice A. The coordinate of Haut-Vallons is 60, 30. The coordinates of Grand-Vallons is 0, 0. Petit-Vallons is 20, -10. Choice A is logically halfway, so it's 30, 15. You could use the midpoint formula. X1, which is 0, plus 60 is 60, divided by 2 is 30. The y value is 0 plus 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. We have 30, 15 here. We're going to figure out the distance from Grand-Vallons to Haut-Vallons. We're going to use our distance formula, which is the square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared. Delta x is 60, take away 0 is 60. 60 squared is 3,600. 30 squared is 900. I run that through the calculator. That gives us 67.082 kilometers. The distance from Grand-Vallons to choice A would be half of that. You just divide by 2, which is 33.541 kilometers. The distance from Haut-Vallons to choice A is also 33.4 kilometers. It's the same distance. Then from Petit-Vallons, they would have to build a road like this. The distance from Petit-Vallons to choice A is delta x squared. 30 take away 20, which is 10, squared is 100, plus 15 take away -10 is 15 plus 10 is 25, squared is 625. We end up with the square root of 100 plus 625 is 725, the square root of which is 26.926 kilometers. This is for choice A, and notice these distances, they're rather similar. These two are identical, and this one's not much shorter. Okay, but it's actually closer to Petit-Vallons than it is to the other 2 points, and it's halfway between the other 2 points. This seems the most equitable in terms of distance. In terms of cost, we have to figure out how much road they're going to build. They're going to build a road from Petit-Vallons to choice A, which we've figured out the distance is 26.926 kilometers. The road is $500,000 per kilometer. 26.925 times 500,000, $13,463,000. That's how much this road costs. Let's figure out how much the other roads cost. Let's look at option B. If we build it here. Option B, now this is halfway that we figured out before, and this is half of the half. It's a quarter way. You could use your distance formula, but it's just easier to do it by taking this distance and saying it's 3/4 of, or it's choice B. This is the midpoint between choice A and Haute-Vallon. We can do it like this. We can figure out the coordinates of it. That gives us 30 plus 60 is 90 divided by 2 is 45. Then 15 plus 30 is 45 divided by 2 is 22.5. We have 45, 22.5. The total distance we found out for choice A between Grand Vallon and Haute-Vallon was 67.082 kilometers. We're going to divide that by 4 to get this distance, which is 16.9505. To get this distance is we could add the 16.9505 to the distance between Grand Vallon and choice A, or we could say it's 3/4 of this. So I did the 3/4 options, but you're gonna get the same number. By 3/4 of this gives us 50.852 kilometers from Grand Vallon to choice B. Then we would have to figure out the distance from Petit Vallon to choice B. We'd have to build a road like this. It's delta x squared. 45 take away 20 squared is 25 squared is 625. 22.5 take away -10 is 32.5 squared is 1056.25. Add those together, take the square root, and that gives you 41.003 kilometers. That would be the distance of the road we'd have to build between Petit Vallon and the choice B for the UHC. The distance from Haute-Vallon to choice B would be 16.951 kilometers. The distance from Grand Vallon to choice B would be 50.852 kilometers. The distance between Petit Vallon and choice B is 41.003 kilometers. The cost of the road would be 41.003 times 500,000 would be $20,501,500, which seems very expensive compared to choice A. Choice A was 13 million and change. Notice it's really close to Haute-Vallon. Most of the population lives in Haute-Vallon, so that makes sense. But it's really far from Grand Vallon. It's greater distance from Petit Vallon than choice A was from the other villages. This is choice B. I'm not in favor of this because it seems really unfair to Grand Vallon. Choice C, we need to find the length of the distance between Point Vallon and choice C. For choice C, the distance from a point to a line. We're going to use that formula. To figure out the distance of a point to a line, we need to know the equation of this line. We know this point, we need to know the equation of this line. We don't know the equation of that line. Let's go get it. The equation of the line, that is the road from Grand Vallon to Haute-Vallon, y is equal to ax plus b. We want to get the slope first. The a is delta y over delta x. And we know the b, by the way. Like, it's going through the origin. The y-intercept is 0. The b is 0. The slope is delta y over delta x, which is 30 take away 0 is the delta y. And 60 take away 0 is the delta x. So 30 over 60, which is 1/2, or 0.5. The b is 0. We get an equation of y is equal to 0.5x. Our equation for the distance from a point to a line is the absolute value of ax minus y plus b, close the absolute value bracket, divided by the square root of a squared plus 1, where the x and the y are the point that we're figuring the distance from. Replace everything I know. Replace the a with 0.5, the x with this x value, the 20, minus the y, minus 10, plus the b, which is 0, all over a squared, 0.5 squared plus 1, the square root of all that. 0.5 times 20 is 10, minus 10 is plus 10, 10 plus 10 is 20, absolute value of that is 20. I have 20 divided by 0.5 squared is 0.25 plus 1 is 1.25. The square root of that, if I did 20 divided by the square root of 1.25, it's going to give me 17.8885 kilometers. That's the distance from here to here. Now I need to know the distance along that way. I need to know the distance from Grand Vallon to choice C and the distance from choice C to Haute-Vallon. To do that, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem here. I'm going to figure out this distance, and knowing that distance, I can figure out choice C to Grand Vallon. The distance of the road from Grand Vallon to Petit Vallon, this distance, is, I'm going to use my distance formula, which is the square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared. Delta x is 20 take away 0 is 20 squared is 400, plus delta y is negative 10 minus 0 is negative 10 squared is 100, gives us 500. The square root of 500 is 22.361 kilometers. The distance from Grand Vallon to choice C, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. A squared is equal to c squared take away b squared. C squared is the 22.361 squared, which should give us 500, minus 17.885 squared, which gives us 320. So 500 take away 320 is 180. The square root of 180 is 13.416. This distance is 13.416 kilometers here. Now, the distance from Petit Vallon to choice C, we already figured out, is 17.885 kilometers. And then the distance from Haut Vallon to choice C is, we'll just take this full distance and we're going to subtract this minor distance from Grand Vallon to choice C. The distance from Haut Vallon to choice C is the length of the road between Grand Vallon and Haut Vallon, which is 67.082 kilometers, and we're going to subtract this little 13.416 kilometers from that, and that's going to give us 53.636 kilometers. We need to build this small road. It's going to be 17.8885 times 500,000, which gives us $8,944,250, which is the cheapest road. But look at the distance from Haut Vallon, where most people live. It's a distance of 53 kilometers. It's only a distance of 13 and 17 from Grand Vallon, Petit Vallon. Totally unfair. The price is right, but it's an unfair distance. Here we have the three choices, choice A, B, and C. If we're looking at this one, the price is not 20 million, and it's certainly not 8 million. They talk about, we're told that it's a cost of $125 million to build the healthcare center. Unfortunately, they don't tell us what the budget is for the road. That's what we're doing. We're building a road, we're moving trees. We're not actually building the healthcare center. We don't know what the budget is for the road. Discussing budget, I don't think that makes any sense. We're looking at which one's more expensive, which one's least expensive, whether it's fair or not. For this one, the thing I like about it is they're approximately the same distance, 33 kilometers. That's doable. That's the longest distance here. It's the same. It's shared between Haut Vallon and Grand Vallon. It's 26.92 kilometers from Petit Vallon, and it's a cost of $13,463,000. I don't really mind that. Let's look at the populations. The population, so you want it to be along this road for sure. I mean, because of most everybody lives here. And most people live in Haut Vallon. Choice A, choice B makes sense. The problem with choice B is the distance from Grand Vallon, and it's extremely expensive because you have to build a very long road from Petit Vallon. We need to figure out the population of Petit Vallon. The population of Haut Vallon is 48,000. The population of Grand Vallon is 24,000. Then we have to figure out the population of Petit Vallon. We know there are 76,000 people in the region of Les Trois Vallons. Subtract the 48,000, subtract 24,000. That gives you only 4,000 people live in Petit Vallon. I really like choice A for that reason, that if choice C doesn't make sense. It's super close to Petit Vallon, but it's super far from Haut Vallon. Anything in the 50 kilometer zone, I would say that's too far. I would say that this is too far. And this, being the most expensive, I would say that's too expensive. But once again, we weren't really given a budget. This distance is too far as well. I'm going to pick choice A because it's almost equidistant between the three, and the road cost is 13 million, which seems to make sense. Let's go and look at the trees. They want to transplant the trees in a region that corresponds to this half plane. All right, this is the symmetric form of a line. X over 40 plus y over 35 is equal to 1. The x-intercept is 40, and the y-intercept is 35. If we graph that, my y-intercept is 35, my x-intercept is 40. Draw a line between. This is greater than or equal to 1, so the half plane is, we're shading above this line. It's going to be inside this region. We need to find the area of this region. I'm going to find the equation of the road from Grand Vallon to Haut Vallon. I need to know this equation. We've already worked this out. Y is equal to 0.5x. The equation of the road from Petit Vallon to Haut Vallon, we haven't worked that out yet. Y equals ax plus b. The a is delta y over delta x. 30 take away negative 10 is 40 over 60 minus 20 is 40. It gives us a slope of 1. And we can see the slope is 1. It's going through the diagonal. Y equals ax plus b. The a is 1. Y equals x plus b. To figure out the b, I'm going to plug in one of my points. I'm going to plug in the 60, 30. That gives me the y is 30. The x is 60 plus b. Subtract 60 from both sides. That gives me negative 30 is b. The equation of the road from Petit Vallon to Haut Vallon is y equals x minus 30. I am going to equate the equation of this line in point slope form with the equation of these two lines. So I'm going to call this point E and that point D. To get point D, I'm going to rewrite this equation in point slope form. Remember, the slope is negative b over a, which is negative 35 over 40. I can reduce that by dividing the top bottom by 5, and that gives me negative 7 over 8, or I can get a decimal of negative 0.875. The b value is 35. Remember, the b in the symmetric form is the same as the b in the point slope form. We get the equation y is equal to negative 0.875x plus 35. We can equate this equation with the equation of this line. It's where this line meets the y equals 0.5. This line meets that line. The y's must be equal at this point, so I can make this part equal to that. 0.5x is equal to negative 0.875x plus 35. I'm going to add 0.875 to both sides. That gives me 1.375x equals 35. Divide both sides by 1.375, and that gives us x is equal to 25.4545. That's the x value. To get the y value, I'm going to plug this x into this equation. We have y is equal to 0.5 times 25.4545, which gives us 12.7272. Notice 25, and look, here's our 10, here's our 15, 12.72 makes sense. We have a point, 25.4545, comma, 12.7272 is our point D. For point E, that's where the line y equals 0.875x plus 35, this line, meets that line, which is y is equal to x minus 30. Where these lines meet, we have the point E. We're going to set the x minus 30 equals to the negative 0.875x plus 35. Add 0.875x to both sides, and that gives us 1.875x minus 30 is equal to 35. Add 30 to both sides. So that gives me 1.875x equals 65. Divide both sides by 1.875. That gives us x is equal to 34.66666, repeating. To get the y value, I'm going to take the simpler of the two equations, and y equals x minus 30, replace the x with 34.667. That gives us 4.6666666. Repeating. We have this point for point E. To figure out the area of this triangle, use the equation for finding the area of a triangle from the vertices. Area of the triangle from D to E to point Valence. So D to E to point Valence makes a triangle, or the yellow area. Absolute value of x sub a times open bracket y sub c minus y sub b close the bracket plus x sub b times open bracket y sub a minus y sub c close the bracket plus x sub c times open bracket y sub b minus y sub a close the bracket. Close the absolute value brackets divided by 2. This is going to be my A, B, and C. I'm doing the 25.4545 times the YC, 30, take away the YB, the 4.667, plus the XB, the 34.667, times the YA, times the 12.72, take away YC, take away 30, plus the XC is 60, times the YB, which is 4.667, take away YA, 12.72. Do all that, run it through the calculator, and that's going to give us 218.787878 kilometers squared. That's the area of the yellow region. That's the area where we're going to be planting the trees. How many trees can we plant? The trees each take 0.1 kilometers squared. We're going to divide the 218.7878 kilometers squared by 0.1, and that gives us, it's like multiplying by 10, 2,187.878787 trees. It's just you can't have 0.878787 of a living thing. It's 2,187 trees. The trees to transplant or to plant new trees cost $25 per tree. Each tree costs $25. 25 times 2,187 is $54,675. For the total cost of this project, we're choosing choice option A, this one. The road cost is $13,463,000. Our total cost are going to be the road cost plus the trees is the $13,463,000 plus the $54,675 for the trees gives us $13,517,675 for the total cost of the project. And that is it for the ES. Have a good day.